Hello, welcome to 1.3 for Geometry A with Mr. Heeren. How did 1.2 go? Pretty well, I hope. Being able to measure something is a great skill to have, and it's something that does need to be developed. Okay, so please take some extra time if you need to figure out how to measure and what linear measure kind of represents. So in 1.3, we talk about distance and midpoint. Okay, distance and midpoint are two skills that you absolutely need to have because they keep showing up over and over again throughout geometry. So this is the kind of the basic introduction to those two things. And the better you can get at them now, it'll save you a lot of hassle later. So let's look at kind of what we're dealing with. Distance is exactly what it sounds like. It's how many items from one to the other. Okay, so on a number line, you're looking for the distance, and I don't have a ruler. I'm not measuring. I'm simply measuring how many units it is from wherever I start to wherever I end. So find AC. So when we start here, how many units is it from A to C? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, just like that, 5 units. Not bad at all. So from B to D, so I start here at B, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now notice I don't really take in the numbers on the number line into account. I'm not looking for that. I'm more looking at how far is it from wherever I start to wherever I finish. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7. So it's just going to be 7 units. Okay, so distance between 2 points is pretty easy, especially on a number line. All right, it's just merely counting the units from the first to the second. And I kind of ignore this down here. Okay, that doesn't interest me for this. Midpoint is a little bit trickier. So for midpoint, I need to find halfway. So an easy way to do that would be take your distance and divide by 2. All right, so if I'm looking for the midpoint of FH, okay, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my distance is going to be 8 units. So I'm going to divide by 2. So that will be 4 units. So I need to count from your start. Okay, so I'm going to count from F. I'm going to count 4 units. So I'm going to change colors here so you can see. So you're going to 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 units from F is point G. So point G is going to be my midpoint. Okay, it's exactly halfway from F to H. So what is the midpoint of GH then? Well, G to H, 1, 2, 3, 4. My distance is 4 divided by 2 is going to be 2 units. So when I go 2 units, 1, 2, I end up here. So it's going to be, I don't have a name for that, so I'll just put at location 3. So distance, you're merely counting. Midpoint, you are finding the exact middle between the 2 points. And that's what midpoint is. Midpoint is exactly what it sounds like. It's halfway in between. Okay, so here, it cuts this segment directly in half, right? So that's what a midpoint does. So A is a midpoint. So that means that this length and this length are equal. So that means that their measures are equal. So 2B plus 3 is 11. So then it becomes an algebra problem. All right, sorry, I got a little ahead of you there. So those two are equal to each other because it's a midpoint. So now it's an algebra problem. So b is going to equal 4, which makes total sense. Okay, 2 times 4 plus 3 does equal 11, so that checks. So it's just merely throwing in a little bit of algebra into the kind of the geometric big idea. So now if we look here, Q is your midpoint. Okay, so what do I do with this? Well, those two are equal to each other. So now 14 plus 5y equals 9y minus 2. Now, a couple of algebraic steps. I'm combining, so I'm just kind of shortening things up here. So plus 5 minus 5 is 0. 9y minus 5y is 4y. Plus 2 minus 2 is 0 as well. So I'm left with 16 equals 4y. So a little division. 16 divided by 4 is 4. There's my answer. Except what they're asking for is the measure of PQ. So I figured out why. So now for PQ, I need to do a little substituting and do a little evaluating. So PQ is 14 plus 5y. I know that y is 4. So there's my answer. So it'll be 34, and you can label it units, and that'll be my answer. So now how does it change when I go on the coordinate plane? So let's figure out kind of where we're dealing with. So G is located here. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that'd be -7, -1. F is located here. So that will be 1, -1. H is up here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when I do this, midpoint, remember, is still exactly halfway in between. Okay, still halfway in between. So now what I need to do is find halfway in between, but I do that by doing halfway in between the x's and halfway in between the y's. Okay, so what I end up doing is averaging those two. So I end up taking x1 plus x2 divided by 2. And I take y values, and I divide those by 2. Now, here's kind of the tricky part, and here's where kids like to get kind of jumbled up and make mistakes, is that midpoint, it's an actual point. Okay, it's an actual point, and when you're in the coordinate plane for a point, you need an x value, you need a y value. You need both of those. Okay? So and that's kind of what these big parentheses tell you. I need an x value and I need a y value. You need to tell me a location somewhere in this coordinate plane that's a midpoint. Okay? So if I look at what's the midpoint of FH, what I want to do is look at F and H. Well, my x and my y of F is going to be 1, -1, and of H is going to be 6, 5. So my midpoint then is going to be 1 plus 6 divided by 2, -1 plus 5 divided by 2. So that's simply going to be 3.5 and 2. 3.5 and 2. So if I just sketch that, 1, 2, 3.5, and go up 2. So this would be my midpoint between F and H. Okay, and that looks pretty good. If I look at F to H, that looks pretty good. M looks pretty right in the middle there. Okay? For GF, let's look at X and Y. G is going to be -7, -1. F, apologies, is going to be 1, -1. So when I do this, it becomes -7 plus 1. The X's, should not have put that parenthesis there. And then -1 plus -1 divided by 2. So what happens here? This becomes, so -7 plus 1, -6 divided by 2, -3. -1 plus -1 is -2, divided by 2 is going to be -1. So at 1, 2, 3, -1, there's going to be my midpoint there, which fits. 4 units that way, 4 units that way. This is on the segment. That's not too tough. Okay, so the big idea is that I add the x's together, divide by 2, add the y's together, divide by 2. Okay? This takes a little practice. This takes a little time, but it's a good skill to have. Distance. Distance can be a little messy, and the biggest battle is in the setup. So here is your distance formula. And this is something, please circle it, put stars by it. Do everything you can to memorize it. Put it on a Post-it. Look at it before you go to bed at night. Do something to get this into your head, okay? Because this is going to be something that you will need to know. Okay, and believe it or not, it is derived, it came from Pythagorean theorem, which some of you may know, some of you may have forgotten, and that's fine. But that's like the a squared plus b squared equals c squared thing. So what this does is this just kind of takes a little bit of Pythagorean theorem and puts it into coordinate plane terms. Okay, so when we look at what is the distance from point F to point H, we're looking at how far is it. Okay, and I can't just count, 1, 2, I can't just count along the blocks. That doesn't work. All right, if it's a straight line, then I can do it, but not if it's diagonal like that. So I look at point F, and I remember that hey, that's at 1, -1. Point H is at 6, 5. So I need the distance. So what does that look like? Well, this is an X, this is a Y. This is an X, this is a Y. So my distance formula looks like this. I have this big, long square root. So I take X minus X, that's the second X minus the first X squared. Then I take the second X minus the first, or second Y minus the first Y squared. So this becomes 5 squared plus 6 squared. So that becomes 25 plus 36. So that becomes square root of 61, and that would be my answer. Yeah, that would be my answer. So the biggest battle here for students is to set it up correctly. After that, it's merely a job of simplifying. For G to F, if you notice, G to F is they're on the same. They have the same. X value, or I'm sorry, Y value. So G 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So G is at -7, -1. F is at 1, -1. Okay, so they have the same Y value. They're on the same line. So the shortcut version is simply count, kind of like we're on a number line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what's the distance from G to F? Well, it's just going to be 8. Okay, can I do it using the distance formula? Absolutely. Absolutely, but you'll find something that kind of happens kind of strange. So remember, X, Y, X, Y. So 1 minus a negative 7, and then negative 1 minus a negative 1, okay, for y minus y. But now look what happens. 1 minus a negative 7 becomes 8. Negative 1 minus a negative 1 becomes 0. So that becomes just the square root of 8 squared, which square root of 64, which is just 8, which is what we had originally. So that's it. Okay, so this is second x, and this is first x, and this is second y, and that's going to be first y. Okay, so I look at my points, I find my points, I figure out x's and I figure out y's, and then I substitute it in, and I just do a little simplifying. And that's it. This is going to take you a little while to get good at the setup, but take your time and you'll be fine. So now off you go to do the assignment and, ask questions, especially if you're struggling. Thank you.